Oh, geez.
for those. I didn't
I
even
didn't November 1st, 2022, regularly scheduled meeting of Findlay City Council. Roll call, please.
Mr. Ballman?
Here.
Ms. Frischi?
Here.
Mr. Greeno?
Here.
Mr. Hellman?
Here.
Mr. Niemeyer?
Here.
Mr. Palmer?
Here.
Mr. Russell?
Here.
Mr. Slough?
Here.
Ms. Warnicki?
Here.
And Mr. Wobser?
Present.
My name is Grant Russell, and I am the President Pro Tem of Findlay City Council. And when either the mayor or the president of council is not present for a meeting, I slide over into this seat and I run the council meeting. Today, Mayor Mern is absent, but absent for a very good reason. Mayor Mern is a guardian on Flag City Honor Flight's mission to Washington, D.C. Today's mission is taking 87 Vietnam War veterans to visit the memorials at Washington, D.C. that honor their military service. Today marks the third mission of the year for Flag City Honor Flight, and it is sponsored in part by Ohio Logistics and Chuck and Dee Dee Bills. And to them, I give my sincere thanks for their continued support of Flag City Honor Flight. Today, Mayor Mern has the honor of escorting U.S. Navy Petty Officer Second Class Russ Beatty, Jr. With Veterans Day next Friday, November 11th, it is appropriate that we be ever mindful of the service and sacrifice given to all of our veterans, including Petty Officer Beatty and his 86 fellow veterans who are traveling with Flag City Honor Flight today. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have acceptance of our October 18th regular session of City Council meeting minutes. Mr. Slough.
I would move to have the minutes approved as circulated.
Second, Mr. Greeno. Questions or comments? All in favor of accepting the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
The minutes are accepted. Councilman Wobser, do we have any add-on replacements or removals for from the agenda?
Well, since it is the moving in on the Thanksgiving season, Mr. President Pro Tem, we have a cornucopia of add-ons this evening. It took me a while to think that up, so thank you. We have 11, exactly. So I will run through these very quickly. And I think everybody has a copy of them in front of them. And if you don't, there's some more outside versus reading all of this verbatim. We have number 1 is a Board of Zoning Appeals September 8th minutes. Number 2 is a letter from City Engineer Kalb on the CSO long-term control plan and the amendment for project 356-6200. Number 3 is a letter from City Engineer Kalb, AIP 34, project 3522-5200. Number 4 is a letter from City Engineer Kalb, who was obviously very busy the last half of this week, for Hancock Interstate and FHS Trails, PID 115232. Number 5 is City Planning Commission meeting minutes from 10/13/22. Number 6 is City Planning meeting agenda for 11/10/22. Number 7 is Water and Sewer Committee report from the meeting of October 27th, 2022. Number 8 is resolution number 030/2022. This is no PO legislation section. Number 9, we're getting there. Resolution 031/2022 AIP-34 project 3522-5200 legislation. Number 10, ordinance 2022-125, the CSO long-term control plan. I'm going to guess this goes with Jeremy's letter above. And number 11 is ordinance 2022-126 for the Hancock Interstate and FHS Trails. And again, I suspect this goes with Jeremy's letter previously mentioned. That's all.
And that was
for
in the
add-ons.
form of
And that is a
adding.
motion to add those to our agenda for this evening.
Fantastic. Mr. Slough? All in favor of adding on and as described, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign, and the agenda has been amended. No proclamations, no recognitions, retirements, or resolutions. We're on to petitions. Let's go back and, Councilman Wobser, do we
I
have
would like
any
to amend my
replacements?
motion. My apologies. I got tired reading 11 and I missed the 2 replacements. I have 2 replacements also. Ordinance number 108 as amended for the ARPA funds legislation. This is changing out the exact amount needed for that legislation. And number 2 was ordinance 2022-120 as amended. This is strict center gross maximum price 3 project legislation section, and not sure exactly what we're changing here, but I'm sure that Jeremy would love to tell us about it when we get there. And that is a motion amended for the add-ons and replacements tonight, and I apologize.
Second, Mr. Slough, all those in favor of the replacement ordinances, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign, and those 2 ordinances are replaced. And now we'll roll into petitions.
An alley vacation request for Bolton Street from James Bowser, owner of Performance R&D, requesting a vacation of Bolton Street from Burnett Street south to the dead end.
And we'll have that referred to City Planning Commission and the Planning and Zoning Committee. We have no oral communications, written communications.
An email from Kathy Weingant, I think that's how you pronounce it, rezoning for proposed McDonald's site.
Questions or comments? Letter be filed.
An email from Larry and Scott Ball, owner and operators of McDonald's Findlay, proposed site for McDonald's.
Questions or comments? Letter be filed. Reports of municipal officers and municipal departments.
Board of Zoning Appeals minutes for March 10th, 2022, as well as September 8th, 2022.
And note that the September 8th, 2022 has the additional page in it. Anyone want to move to accept those minutes? Mr. Slough.
Moved.
Thank you. Second? Second, Mr. Ballman. All in favor of accepting these minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The minutes are accepted.
Letter from City Engineer Calb regarding AIP 33 North Apron Rehab Construction, project number 35224-000.
Questions or comments? Letter be filed.
Letter from City Engineer Calb regarding ODOT fiscal year 23 resurfacing Bright Road Phase 3, project number 32822-000.
Questions or comments? Letter be filed.
Letter from President Pro Tem Russell regarding ad hoc committee on council's rules of procedure.
Questions or comments? Letter be filed.
Letter from Service Safety Director Martin regarding additional requests for fire department vehicle accessories.
Questions or comments? Letter be filed.
A letter from Service Safety Director Martin regarding President's discretionary grant for free skate day.
Questions or comments? Letter be filed.
Letter from Mayor Mern regarding revised hours for the DORA.
Questions or comments? Ms. Frishy?
I know the mayor's not here, but does anybody know, did we touch base with the police department to get their input on this request to extend hours?
Police Chief Ring has been involved in the conversation, so yes. Yes.
And in conversations with acting law director, or assistant law director, excuse me, my understanding is that we would expect to see legislation to affect these changes coming to us. I would imagine it would have to be on the November 15th agenda.
I've got a question.
Mr. Hellman.
Is this permanent, do you know? I mean, it'll roll over every year like this, or is this just a one-and-done trial? Does anybody know?
Mr. Martin?
I noticed that wasn't specified, so we can see how it goes the first year, and then we can revisit it. As we have with the door, as you pointed out, it's been a pretty successful situation that we haven't seen a lot of issues. So if the recommendation with the legislation is to go for an annual thing and then revisit, we can certainly do that, unless we'd like to have it a perpetual annual occurrence. So it's up for discussion.
I think I'd prefer to see it renewed annually rather than ongoing automatically, but we can talk about that later or once it comes up for approval.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Letter be filed. On to the add-on letters.
Letter from City Engineer Calb regarding CSO Long-Term Control Plan Amendment, project number 356-26200.
Questions or comments? Letter be filed.
Letter from City Engineer Calb regarding AIP 34, project number 352-5200.
Questions or comments? And Jeremy, if there's something you want to add on to this at any time, let me know. And like now is it when we're reading the letters, now is the time, especially considering they're add-ons, and especially if anything needs what you believe is immediate attention tonight. Please jump up and thank you. Questions or comments concerning this letter? Letter be filed.
Letter from City Engineer Calb regarding Han Interstate and FHS Trail, PID 115232, project number 328-21400.
Questions or comments? Letter be filed.
City Planning Commission minutes for October 3rd.
Keep going.
City Planning Commission minutes for October 13th, 2022, as well as the agenda of November 10th, 2022.
Questions or comments? Agenda be filed and minutes be filed. Committee reports.
The Appropriations Committee, to whom was referred a request to discuss the consideration of additional restricted funds and accounts. We recommend that the creation of 2 new restricted accounts to designate the use of funds for replacement of existing building system and equipment. Language to be forthcoming. We also recommend that 50% up to $200,000 of unused water and sewer fund accounts be used as one-time appropriation to the above accounts.
Mr. Greeno.
Yes, I'm all for, I'm on the committee actually, and I approve this. But the one thing that we kind of left hanging out there was the language to be forthcoming. And I think once that language is developed, I would like to see that go through water and sewer. Just let us take a look at it and vet it, if that'd be possible.
Mr. Wobser.
We know that and Auditor Stasiak can add to this, and I'll just say we'll have a resolution coming up at the next meeting that will help us get the next step in this process to set up these 2 funds. And at that point, I'm going to turn it over to Jim to give us some additional information on how that needs to be happen, how that will happen. Excuse me,
Mr. Stasiak.
Thank you. We're making good progress. We've got the research done. At that meeting, if it is okay with you, what I would like to do also is include a historical perspective on your Rotary funds. I think council really needs to have an understanding of why the city doesn't fund expansion of water lines and some of the things in the vehicle that this body put in place over the last several decades. And it fits well into this, since this is talking about funding and preparing to fund and pay for replacement of the water treatment facility and the wastewater treatment facilities, so that there's a good understanding of this body, not only should you decide to move forward with setting that money aside, but also the vehicles you have in place, and a good understanding to not inhibit development, but to enhance development, and how those developers can recapture funds that they invest. So if you're okay with that.
I think that's an excellent point, and I'm 100% behind that. I think we need to know what funds are out there, how to use those funds. So I have no problem with that at all. So Like I say, we'll be trying to set up a water and sewer meeting shortly.
Mr. Wobser.
Make a motion to approve the committee report.
Second, Ms. Warnicki. Ms. Warnicki?
I can second that, but I also had a question. Jeff, I think I asked this at the meeting, and I'm just not reading it that way. Is the 200,000 for water and 200,000 for sewer?
Yes.
Okay. It's just not overly clear with that statement. but
I
anyway, it's okay.
apologize.
It's all right.
Yeah.
We
That,
have-
that is,
Go ahead, Jeff.
no, go ahead.
We have a motion to approve the committee report in a second. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Wobser.
Otter Stasiak has a comment. I'd recognize him, please.
We'll make sure so that it's clear that you have two separate pieces of legislation, one for water and one for sewer, and that way there's no ambiguity in the short term or the long term.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All in favor of the committee accepting the committee report, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The committee report is accepted.
The Appropriations Committee, to whom was referred a request to discuss a demolition program update. We recommend the approval of the use of $400,000 of ARPA funds for the City of Findlay Building Demolition Program. Program details to be forthcoming from the administration.
Mr. Wobser.
Make a motion to approve the committee report.
Second, Mr. Guarino. Questions or comments? All those in favor of accepting the committee report, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Committee report is accepted.
The Appropriations Committee, to whom was referred a request to discuss fire department emergency response equipment for newly purchased trucks. We recommend to approve the additional $26,620.03 for pickup truck equipment. Attached is cost breakdown.
Mr. Wobser.
You'll notice that there's the chief's letter is in our packet tonight, along with legislation to get this done. I make a motion to approve the committee report.
Second, Mr. Slough. Questions or comments? All in favor of the committee, accepting the committee report, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The committee report is accepted.
The Streets, Sidewalks, and Parking Committee met on October 18th, 2022 to continue discussions from the August 22nd, 2022 committee meeting on carriage service walks. We recommend further discussion on carriage walks. The committee will meet on October 24th, 2022 to recommend a policy to address carriage walks.
Mr. Slough.
I move for adoption of the committee report.
Second, Mr. Wobser. Questions or comments? All in favor of accepting the committee report, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Committee report is accepted.
The Streets, Sidewalks, and Parking Committee met on October 24th, 2022 to continue discussions from the October 18th, 2022 and August 22nd, 2022 committee meeting on carriage service walks. We recommend the city remove carriage walks when curbs are replaced. Property owners can replace carriage walks at their own cost.
Mr. Palmer.
I move that the committee report be tabled. The administration has more information regarding carriage walks coming within the next week or so. So therefore, I move to table the committee report.
Second, Mr. Ballman. All those in favor of tabling the committee report, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The committee report is tabled.
This is add-on committee report. The Water and Sewer Committee met on October 27th, 2022 to continue the August 23rd, 2022 discussions of a CSO long-term plan. We recommend that the city engineer moves forward with services needed to validate and assemble data for CSO long-term control plan projects. Move forward with drafting legislation for data collection and modeling phase for the CSO LTCP for the amount of $390,000.
Mr. Greeno.
Move for approval of committee report.
Second, Mr. Wobser. Questions or comments? All in favor of acceptance of the committee report, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The committee report is accepted. On to legislation.
First reading for Resolution 30, 2022. A resolution approving the expenditures made by the Auditor's Office on the attached list of vouchers which either exceed the purchase order or were incurred without a purchase order, exceeding the statutory limit of $3,000, all in accordance with Ohio Revised Code 5705.41D.
Mr. Wobser.
I believe this only needs one reading, is that correct?
Yep.
Make a motion to approve.
Second, Mr. Greeno. Questions or comments? Ms. Frishy?
Rob, are you able just to tell us what legal counsel we were spending the 10,181 on, what case or what that cost was for? That Rob. Well, I would assume that Rob, unless
Either
the other
Rob.
Rob wants to do it.
No, I do not know, because I'm not involved in the ongoing.
I could email that to you tomorrow.
Other questions or comments? All in favor of the resolution, please say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Ballman?
Aye.
Ms. Frishy?
Nay.
Mr. Greeno?
Aye.
Mr. Hellman?
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer? Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Mr. Slough?
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki?
Aye.
Mr. Wobser?
Aye.
The resolution is adopted.
First reading for Resolution 31-2022. This is an add-on. A resolution transferring funds within appropriated funds and declaring an emergency.
Rob, is this a 1 or a 2, or 1 or 3 readings, do you know?
This is Jeremy.
22, or excuse me, 031.
3. When the resolution's emergency, it's 3.
So North Apron.
We're going to assume that this is 3 unless told otherwise, so. Three? Okay. Keep going.
Moving on.
Yep.
Third reading for ordinance 2022-104, an ordinance appropriating and transferring funds and declaring an emergency. That is a third reading.
Mr. Ballman,
Move for adoption of ordinance number 2022-104.
second, Mr. Hellman. Questions or comments? All in favor for adoption of ordinance 2022-104, please say aye after your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Ms. Frishy?
Aye.
Mr. Greeno?
Aye.
Mr. Hellman?
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer? Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Mr. Slough?
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki?
Aye.
Mr. Wobser?
Aye.
Mr. Ballman?
Aye.
The ordinance is adopted.
Third reading for ordinance 2022-105, an ordinance appropriating and transferring funds and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Slough.
I would move for adoption of ordinance 2022-105.
Second, Mr. Greeno. Questions or comments? Ms. Frishy.
Just refresh me what that pre-budget appropriation was and what it was going to. Didn't have it in front of me. Anybody know?
Is for payout of comp time and unemployment claims and medical insurance coverage.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? All in favor of ordinance 2022-105, please say aye after your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Greeno?
Aye.
Mr. Hellman?
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer? Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Mr. Slough?
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki? Mr. Wobser?
Aye.
Mr. Ballman?
Aye.
Ms. Frishy?
Aye.
The ordinance is adopted.
Third reading for ordinance 2022-106, an ordinance appropriating funds and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Palmer.
Move for adoption of ordinance number 2022-106.
Second, Mr. Slough. Questions or comments? All in favor of ordinance 2022-106, please say aye after your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Hellman?
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer? Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Mr. Slough?
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki? Mr. Wobser?
Aye.
Mr. Ballman?
Aye.
Ms. Frishy?
Aye.
And Mr. Greeno.
Aye.
The ordinance is adopted.
Third reading for ordinance 2022-108, an ordinance appropriating and transferring funds and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Palmer.
Move for adoption of ordinance number 2022-108 as amended.
Thank you.
Second, Ms. Warnicki. Questions or comments? All in favor of ordinance 2022-108, please say aye after your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Niemeyer? Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Mr. Slough?
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki? Mr. Wobser?
Aye.
Mr. Ballman?
Aye.
Ms. Frishy?
Nay.
Mr. Greeno?
Aye.
Mr. Hellman?
Aye.
Oh, 108.
The ordinance is adopted.
Third reading for ordinance 2022-109 as amended. Mr. Bowman has his hand raised.
Mr. Bowman.
Move for passage of ordinance number 2022-109.
Second,
As
Mr.
amended.
Slough. Oh, thank you. Second, Mr. Slough. Questions or comments? All in favor of ordinance 2022-109 as amended, please say aye after your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Palmer,
Nay.
Mr. Russell,
Aye.
Mr. Slough,
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki,
Aye.
Mr. Wobser,
Aye.
Mr. Ballman,
Aye.
Ms. Frishy,
Nay.
Mr. Greeno,
Aye.
Mr. Hellman,
Aye.
and Mr. Niemeyer.
Nay.
3 nays. So 3 out of 10.
The ordinance is adopted. Keep going.
110's tabled, so second reading for ordinance 2022-111. An ordinance authorizing the auditor to make payroll deductions for those employees who have elected to enroll in the health savings account plan and declaring an emergency. Second reading for ordinance 2022-112. An ordinance amending 3 sections of codified ordinance number 2022-81 as amended, known as the salary ordinance of the city of Findlay, Ohio, and repealing all other parts of ordinances in conflict herewith and declaring an emergency. Second reading for ordinance 2022-113. An ordinance approving the request of the administrative judge of the municipal court of the city of Findlay, Ohio, to grant an additional 15% salary increase for the clerk of municipal court position, which would exceed the allotted 8% of current codified ordinance 2022-81 as amended of the city of Findlay, Ohio, known as the salary ordinance, and declaring an emergency. Second reading for ordinance 2022-114. An ordinance authorizing the mayor, service safety director, and/or city engineer of the city of Findlay, Ohio, to enter into a contractor contracts with Tuttle Construction Incorporated for the design services phase of the city of Findlay, Ohio Public Works Department building, also known as Fabrication Shop, project number 31912500, located on Corey Street, appropriating and transferring funds thereto, and declaring an emergency.
Jeremy, as I recall from a couple weeks ago, this was something that we gave the first reading to at our last meeting, and it was something that you had a desire to get moving on. Can you fill us in, make sure my memory was correct?
Yeah, so that's correct. So this is the design portion. I'd like to get going on the design so we know what the building's going to look like. In the meantime, we're also evaluating all our other buildings to see what kind of repairs are needed. So as we're going through, this will help us with capital planning as well. So it's nice to get ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Greeno.
I move the statutory rules of council be waived and give this ordinance its third reading.
Second, Mr. Slough. All those in favor of suspending council statutory rules and giving ordinance 2022-114 its third reading, please say aye after your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Mr. Slough?
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki?
Aye.
Mr. Wobser?
Aye.
Mr. Ballman?
Aye.
Ms. Frishy?
Aye.
Mr. Greeno?
Aye.
Mr. Hellman?
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer?
Aye.
And Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
Council statutory rules have been waived, and this ordinance will be given its third reading.
Ordinance 2022-114.
Mr. Greeno.
Move for adoption of ordinance number 2022-114.
Second, Mr. Ballman. Questions or comments? Ms. Frishy.
Jeremy, this project is gonna be similar to the strict center of how we're gonna do it, right? It's gonna be phased out, so, or phase paid, or?
Yeah, so this one, we're going to be doing the design phase first before we get into the GMP stuff. So this, if you want to say this first phase that I have on right now is just strictly design. We're not going to be getting into construction until we get, I guess, get the design complete on ultimately the sizing and the needs of what we want out there.
Other questions? All those in favor of this ordinance, please say aye after your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Slough?
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki?
Aye.
Mr. Wobser?
Aye.
Mr. Ballman?
Aye.
Ms. Frishy?
Aye.
Mr. Greeno?
Aye.
Mr. Hellman?
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer? Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
And Mr. Russell.
Aye. The ordinance is adopted.
Second reading for ordinance 2022-118. An ordinance vacating a portion of alley between West McPherson Avenue and Lake Cascades Parkway, formerly Vance Avenue, east of Douglas Parkway, abutting the Sherman Addition, Block G, and in lots number 16815 through 16822, hereinafter referred to as the 119 West McPherson Avenue vacation. Second reading for ordinance 2022-120. Is this as amended?
No.
Okay, my mistake. An ordinance authorizing the mayor, service safety director, and/or city engineer of the city of Findlay, Ohio, to enter into a guaranteed maximum price phase amendment number 3, GMP 3, with Klaus Construction Corporation. It is amended because I had
Yeah,
some.
it is amended. Sorry. I'm looking at the wrong place.
Does anybody have the amended one? For some reason, I don't have it.
120.
Sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, I got it.
For interior building, foundation, concrete, masonry, mezzanine, and overhead doors for the Strict Center project and declaring an emergency. That is 120 as amended.
Yes.
First reading for ordinance 2022-121, an ordinance appropriating and transferring funds and declaring an emergency. First reading for ordinance 2022-122, an ordinance appropriating funds and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Baumann.
I would move that the council's statutory rules be suspended, as this is an opportunity to get grant funding in motion sooner rather than later.
Second, Mr. Slough. All those in favor of waiving council's statutory rules and giving ordinance 2022-122 its second and third reading, please say aye after your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Ms. Warnicki?
Aye.
Mr. Wobser?
Aye.
Mr. Bowman?
Aye.
Ms. Frishy?
Aye.
Mr. Greeno?
Aye.
Mr. Hellman?
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer? Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Mr. Slough?
Aye.
Council statutory rules have been suspended, and this ordinance will be given its second and third reading.
Ordinance 2022-122, ordinance 2022-122.
Mr. Baumann.
Move for adoption of ordinance number 2022-122.
Second, Mr. Greeno. Questions or comments? All in favor of ordinance 2022-122, please say aye after your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Wobser?
Aye.
Mr. Ballman?
Aye.
Ms. Frishy?
Aye.
Mr. Greeno?
Aye.
Mr. Hellman?
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Mr. Slough?
Aye.
And Ms. Warnicki.
Aye.
The ordinance has been adopted.
First reading for ordinance 2022-123, an ordinance authorizing the service safety director and/or city engineer of the city of Findlay, Ohio, to advertise for bids and enter into contracts for the resurfacing of Bright Road from Fostoria Avenue to Production Drive, project number 328-22000, appropriating and transferring funds thereto, and declaring an emergency. First reading for ordinance 2022-124, an ordinance appropriating funds and declaring an emergency. First reading for ordinance 2022-125, an ordinance authorizing the service safety director and/or city engineer of the city of Findlay, Ohio, to enter into a contract with Strand Associates Incorporated for the flow monitoring and data collection portion of the Water Pollution Control Center Long-Term Control Plan Amendment, project number 356262000, 356262000, appropriating and transferring funds thereto, and declaring an emergency. First reading for ordinance 2022-126, an ordinance appropriating and transferring funds and declaring an emergency. And that's all no,
I think that's it.
did I skip 108 as
No.
amended?
Nope. Congratulations, you made it through. We are on to old business. Ms. Frishy.
Denise, on the 108 ordinance that was on third reading, I said nay because I was reading the next one down. So if you can just change that for me to be an aye, that would be lovely.
Yeah. So that makes 22-108 passed by a 10-0 vote. Other old business. New business. Mr. Greeno.
As I mentioned, I'd like to schedule a Water and Sewer Committee meeting. So if Mr. Palmer and Mr. Russell could check your calendar. I'm thinking maybe next Wednesday, the 9th. That's up to you guys. I mean, 4 or 5 o'clock, whichever fits best in your.
I am busy at 5 and 4 o'clock. This is more than a 1 hour meeting. It would have to be like 3.
The only reason I'm trying to get it in is I'm going to be gone for a week after that. So
Can we
I
go?
think this is a conversation we need to have probably sooner than later.
Can we go at 3?
Yeah, 3 would work with me.
Okay.
Jim, would that work with you guys? Okay, make sure. Rob? Somebody?
I'm not here next week.
Okay,
Jeremy isn't here.
as long as somebody's there. So, okay, so we'll set that then for Wednesday, November the 9th at 3 o'clock upstairs in the conference room at the mayor's office.
In
Thank
addition, Planning and Zoning Committee will be meeting on Thursday, November 10th at noon. We will be meeting here in council chambers. There are numerous items on the agenda, but the one that I believe there's been the most interest in the city is the rezoning of the West McPherson lot in support of the McDonald's restaurant proposed for the corner of 6th and Main Street. That meeting will be live streamed on our YouTube channel. So that more of the public is able to see it. So Planning and Zoning, Thursday, November 10th at noon here in council chambers. Other new business, Mr. Stasiak.
Just wanted to make the public aware, and you folks, we distributed a copy of our certified annual financial report to each of you. If you don't want the hard copy, it is available online now and posted to the city's website under the city auditor page for 2021. So it's been released by the state and distributed to the necessary parties.
Mr. Wobser.
Just a heads up to the Strategic Planning Committee. The results of the business survey were sent out to you once the mayor gets back into town and we have a chance to confer. We'll be calling a Strategic Planning Committee to go over those results. So I'd encourage all the members to take some time and read through the comments. There were quite a few, and it was really quite interesting. So take some time to do that, and we'll discuss those at a later date to be named.
Any other new business? Mr. Hellman.
If I may, I've got a question on an old business, 2022-121, and I think that is the demolition program. We're gonna use ARPA funds apparently to take care of some old dilapidated properties. And can somebody explain how that list is developed? Is that done by the oldest, by the dumpiest, by the way to salvage neighborhoods? The most dangerous? I'm just curious how we come up with that more than anything else.
Councilman Hellman, this will be handled very similar to the way that we handled the ARPA funds that we use for the local charities. People will have to apply for the grant, and then those will be put into a matrix and scored, and so that everybody was treated equally, and they will be based off of that method of putting the money out. So very similar to what we've done before.
Thank you. So you say that the funds are applied for, they are applied for by the current property owner?
Correct.
Deal? And then to have their property torn down,
Structure, yes.
chicken coop or whatever. All right.
Hopefully it's no chicken coots. We need eggs.
You never know. Thank
So,
you. All right.
Ms. Frishy?
Are we still waiting on what that application is gonna be though, right? We haven't gotten to that, or did we? For the 400,000 for demolition?
No, we haven't. As far as I know, the mayor hasn't put together that matrix yet to see what, what qualifies, what doesn't. We had quite a bit of discussion at appropriations about that, and it'll be forthcoming. We'll have a chance to look at that prior to the process starting.
I've got another question, if I may. Is there a need to explain financial need in order to get the funds, or can anyone apply regardless of that?
That may be one of the columns, although I'll leave it at that. It may be one of the possibilities that you would have, but then we'd have to go through and people would have to submit financial need papers, which would be quite a strenuous effort. And then we have people's financials that we would be looking at and making public. I'm not so sure that's necessarily a good thing to do.
Yeah, Denny, I believe in the Appropriations Committee meeting, they discussed that, but the end result is the mayor's office and Hancock Regional Planning is, aren't you guys working on that, Lizzie, working with that to develop the criteria, and considering the legislation is yet to be adopted by council, it would seem that that's something that's still being worked on.
Okay. I just have a concern that we're handing out monies to property owners that may not have a financial need and could take care of it themselves, that's all. That's the reason for the question.
Thank you. Ms. Frishy?
Dennis, I sat in that committee. They were talking about citizens, nonprofits, and then possibly businesses. And I guess this was something they had talked about from getting state funding earlier this year or last year that didn't come through. So this is a new opportunity to address demolition. So I didn't think it was that deep of a process. I know they mentioned the YMCA had a couple properties they wanted a demolition. So I don't think they're going to get into finances on it. I just think there's a process of an application, and since we had legislation is the only reason I asked. The legislation was there, but the policy's not yet.
Other new business? Seeing as though there's none, we'll call this meeting to close. Or wait, I would need Brian Bauman to motion to close the meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, Brian. And Mr. Guarino, why don't you second that? And we have a first and a second. All in favor of getting out of here, please say aye. And we are adjourned.